Now this is one of the best and most powerful Ball Lightning Sorcerer build in Season 10 without using any Uber uniques. With this build you can easily push high tier pits and one-shot any Uber bosses. And this build focuses on pure damage to easily push the highest tier pits. Now this is an endgame build, so you'll need to have specific gear and will need to masterwork your gear to push the highest tier pits. And I highly recommend you to watch this video from the beginning to the end to see how everything synergizes. So let's check this out. So first I'm going to show you clearing a tier 106 pit without using any Uber uniques. I can easily clear tier 100 pits and max out my glyph levels. Now the main source of damage coming from this build comes from the skill Ball Lightning, and all your other skills will be used to greatly increase your damage or for survivability. And with this build you can always overpower your Ball Lightning skill, which will greatly increase your damage. Now this build does require several chaos armors to maximize our damage, and I am sacrificing tons of speed to maximize my damage. So for speed farming and leveling, I would recommend to check out my speed farming Ball Lightning build, as this build is mainly just for pit pushing, and the gear and skills are completely different from the speed farming version. And one of the main gear for this build is the unique offhand, the Strike of Stormhorn, which will greatly increase our Ball Lightning's damage. And this unique offhand is replaced with the Kun's Catalyst for the speed farming version. And with this build we are not using any defensive skills because we're using the legendary aspect, the aspect of Tenuous Destruction, which will greatly increase our damage if we don't have any defensive skills on our action bar. So because we're not using any defensive skills, we don't have any skills that can break out of crowd control effects. So you'll need to move out of the way of crowd control effects, but it is worth it for the damage increase. And with this build I am not using any Uber uniques, as I have not found the correct Ubers yet. I am looking for the Uber unique helmet, the Air of Perdition, to even further boost my damage, but I have not found this Uber unique helmet yet. With this Uber unique helmet I could probably push higher tier pits, but I will have a build with using Ubers and without using Ubers in the D4 build planner in the description below. And you'll need to fully masterwork your gear in order to greatly increase your damage and for survivability. So this build includes many skills and gear that complement each other, offering a lot of powerful combinations, but I'll cover everything in more details in the dedicated sections. Okay, so next for the skills. Now the main skill for this build is Ball Lightning, and this is our main damage dealing skill. This skill will discharge Ball of Lightnings that damages enemies, and you will greatly increase your Ball Lightning's damage when you hit stunned enemies. And because of the unique focus, the Strike of Stormhorn, your Ball Lightnings will have a chance to become Super Ball Lightnings, dealing devastating damage. The next skill I'm using is Firebolt, and this is a basic skill that shoots a firebolt that deals damage. Now the main reason we're using this skill is to pair with the Chaos perk Explosive Combination, which will greatly increase our damage when we use our basic skill. This skill will also pair with the unique ring, the Tarash's ring, to boost our damage. The next skill I'm using is the ultimate skill Unstable Currents, and this skill will allow you to cast random shock skills whenever you use a shock skill. This skill will also greatly increase your attack speed. This ultimate skill is important because you can cast lightning spears, which will apply vulnerable to enemies. This skill will also cast lightning familiars, which will greatly increase your damage. And because this build has so much cooldown reduction, we can have this ultimate skill Unstable Currents active all the time. The next skill I'm using is Familiar, and this skill will summon a familiar that deals damage to enemies. The main reason we're using this skill is to increase our lightning damage when we summon lightning familiars. The next skill I'm using is a Lightning Spear, and this skill will summon a spear of lightning that seeks out enemies and deals damage. Lightning Spear will also apply vulnerable and stun enemies when it critically strikes them. This skill is really good to pair with the skill Ball Lightning to greatly increase Ball Lightning's damage when it hits stun enemies. And this skill is important to apply vulnerable to enemies. And the last skill I'm using is Blizzard, and this skill will cast a blizzard that chills and damages enemies. Blizzard will also greatly increase your mana regeneration. Now the main reason we're using this skill is to greatly increase our mana regeneration, because using this skill with the unique Chaos perk Mana Shield, we can basically have infinite mana. This skill will also greatly increase your damage to enemies because it will pair with the passive skill Horror Frost, and using this skill will pair with the unique ring, the Tarash's ring, which will greatly increase our damage. Okay, so next for the enchantments. So the first enchantment I'm using is the Teleport enchantment, and this enchantment will turn your evade to a teleport, but in return your evade cooldown is increased. Now this is our only mobility skill, so we can speed through areas, and this enchantment is also good for dodging crowd control effects. The next enchantment I'm using is the Familiar enchantment, and this enchantment will give you a chance to summon a familiar when you cast a conjuration skill, and casting familiars will greatly increase your damage. But the main reason we're using this enchantment is to have two lightning enchantments equipped to pair pair with the legendary node, the Enchantment Master legendary node on the Paragon board. And this legendary node will greatly increase our lightning damage when we have 2 lightning enchantments equipped. Okay, so next for the Chaos perks. And the Chaos perks is Season 10's power, which will gain you buffs. So the first Chaos perk I'm using is Explosive Combinations. And this Chaos perk will greatly increase your damage when you use a basic skill. And the basic skill we're using is Firebolt. So you want to use Firebolt every couple seconds with your other skills when damaging enemies. The next Chaos perk I'm using is Advanced Techniques. And this Chaos perk will greatly increase our core skills damage, but in return will increase your mana cost. Now just be aware that Ball Lightning is considered a core skill. So this skill will greatly increase your Ball Lightning's damage, and we want to increase the mana cost of Ball Lightning to pair with the Chaos Armor, the Banished Lord's Talisman, so we can easily overpower with Ball Lightning. The next Chaos perk I'm using is Power Siphon, and this Chaos perk will greatly increase your core skills damage, but in return will reduce your maximum mana. And since Ball Lightning is considered a core skill, this Chaos perk will greatly increase Ball Lightning's damage. And for the unique Chaos perk I'm using Mana Shield, and this will greatly reduce your maximum life, but in return will greatly increase your maximum mana and mana regeneration. And when you take damage, you will lose mana before your life. So this skill will basically make you a tank and is really good for survivability. And because this unique Chaos perk gives you tons of mana regeneration, pairing this unique Chaos perk with Blizzard will basically give you infinite mana. Okay, next for the Mercenaries. Now for the hired Mercenary, I chose Subo, and this is the skill path I took. One of the main reasons I chose Subo is because of the skill Seeker, which will reveal enemies around you. This skill is really good to easily locate groups of enemies to destroy them. Then I headed left and took Wire Trap, which Subo will place a trap on the floor that stuns enemies. Then I chose Ready at Hand, which will increase your movement speed. Then I chose Cover Fire, which Subo will shoot a volley of arrows that slows enemies. And lastly, I chose Opening Fire to increase my critical strike damage. And for the reinforcement, I chose Variana and chose the skill Bloodthirst. And this skill will greatly increase your attack speed when Variana uses Bloodthirst. And Variana will use Bloodthirst when you cast any skill in combat. Okay, so next for the skill tree. Now this is an endgame build, so you'll need to have chaos armors to maximize your damage and synergize with your skills. And this build is not using any uber uniques. And I do want to mention that this is a pit pushing version of the Ball Lightning build and not the speed farming version. So the skills will be different if you plan to speed farm. And I'll have this full build layout in the D4 build planner in the description below. So starting with the basic skills, I put 1 point into Firebolt and a point into Enhanced Firebolt. And this skill will shoot a Firebolt that deals damage. Now the main reason we're using this skill is to pair with the Chaos perk Explosive Combinations, which will greatly increase our damage when we use a basic skill. This skill will also pair with the unique ring, the Tarasha's Ring, to boost our damage. Next for the core skills, I put 1 point into Devastation, and this skill will increase your maximum mana. And next I put 3 points into Elemental Dominance, and this skill will greatly increase your core skills damage when cast above 50 mana. And just be aware that Ball Lightning is considered a core skill. Next for the defensive skills, I put 1 point into Teleport, a point into Enhanced Teleport, and a point into Shimmering Teleport. And we're only using this skill for the Teleport enchantment, which will turn your evade to a teleport, but in return will increase your evade's cooldown. And the Teleport enchantment is good for mobility and to dodge crowd control effects. Next I put 3 points into Glass Cannon, and this skill will greatly increase your damage, but in return you'll take more damage. Next for the Conjuration skills, I put 1 point into Lightning Spear, a point into Enhanced Lightning Spear, and a point into Invoked Lightning Spear. And this skill will summon a Spear of Lightning that seeks out enemies and deals damage. Lightning Spear will also apply vulnerable and stun enemies when it critically strikes them. This skill is really good to pair with the skill Ball Lightning to greatly increase Ball Lightning's damage when it hits stun enemies. And this skill is important to apply vulnerable to enemies. Next I put 1 point into Familiar, a point into Enhanced Familiar, and a point into Invoked Familiar. And this skill will summon a Familiar that deals damage to enemies. The main reason we're using this skill is to increase our lightning damage when we summon lightning familiars. Next I put 3 points into Primordial Binding, and this skill will increase your summoning damage, movement speed, and mana regeneration for each active summon up to 10 summons. And the reason we're using this skill is to increase our movement speed and mana regeneration, and we can easily cap out this skill. The next skill I'm using is Mana Shield, and this skill will gain you damage reduction every time you spend 100 mana. Next for the Mastery skills, I put 1 point into Blizzard, a point into Enhanced Blizzard, and a point into Wizard's Blizzard. And with this skill you'll cast a Blizzard that chills and damages enemies. Blizzard will also greatly increase your mana regeneration. Now the main reason we're using this skill is to greatly increase our mana regeneration, because using this skill with the unique Chaos perk Mana Shield, we can basically have infinite mana. This skill will also greatly increase your damage to enemies because it will pair with the passive skill Horror Frost. And using this skill will pair with the unique ring, the Tarasha's Ring, which will greatly increase our damage. Next I put 5 points into Ball Lightning, a point into Enhanced Ball Lightning, and a point into Mage's Ball Lightning. And this is our main damage dealing skill. This skill will discharge Ball Lightnings that damages enemies, and you will greatly increase Ball Lightning's damage when you hit a stunned enemy. And because of the unique focus, the Strike of Stormhorn, your Ball Lightnings will have a chance to become super ball lightnings, dealing devastating damage. And then I put 3 points into static discharge, and this skill will give you a chance to form crackling energy when your shock skills critically strikes enemies. And this skill is the only way we can form crackling energy, but because this build has tons of lucky hit chance and we can easily critically strike with our shock skills, you will have no issues gaining crackling energy. Next, I put 2 points into snap freeze, and this skill will give you a chance for your frost skills to instantly freeze enemies, and we can easily freeze enemies with the skill Blizzard. And freezing enemies will pair with our other skills and gear, which will greatly increase our damage. Next, I put 3 points into inner flames, and this will greatly increase your damage while healthy. Next, for the ultimate skills, I put 5 points into unstable currents and a point into prime unstable currents, and this skill will allow you to cast random shock skills whenever you use a shock skill. This skill will also greatly increase your attack speed. This ultimate skill is important because you can cast lightning spears, which will apply vulnerable to enemies. This skill will also cast lightning familiars, which will greatly increase your damage. And because this build has so much cooldown reduction, we can have the ultimate skill unstable currents active all the time. Next, I put 1 point into conduction, and this skill will increase your movement speed when your shock skills critically strikes enemies. Next, I put 3 points into convulsions, and this skill will greatly increase your damage when you pick up crackling energy. And with this build, you can easily gain crackling energy. And next, I put 3 points into electrocution, and this skill will make enemies deal less damage to you when you critically strike them with your shock skills. Next, I put 3 points into permafrost, and this skill will greatly increase your damage while a frost skill is on your action bar, and the frost skill we're using is Blizzard. Next, I put 3 points into hoarfrost, and this skill will greatly increase your damage to chilled and frozen enemies, and we can easily chill and freeze enemies because of the skill Blizzard. Next, I put 3 points into icy touch, and this will greatly increase our damage to vulnerable enemies. Next, I put 3 points into elemental synergies, and this skill will greatly increase our elemental damage for each skill you have equipped of that type. And then I put 3 points into evocation, which will greatly increase our cooldown reduction. And last but not least, for the key passive, I put a point into overflowing energy, and this states you deal 85% increased lightning damage, and crackling energy hits one additional enemy. Each time crackling energy hits an enemy, your shock skill cooldowns are reduced by 0.1 second, increased to 0.35 seconds against elites. So this key passive will greatly increase your lightning damage, and this skill is also useful to reduce the cooldown of our shock skill when crackling energy hits an enemy. Okay, so that's the full skill tree layout for this build to easily destroy huge groups of enemies and melt bosses while having tons of survivability. And this build can easily clear the highest tier pits without needing any uber uniques. And this build does require several chaos armors to push the highest tier pits, and I'll have this full skill tree layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. Okay, so next for the gear. Now this is an endgame build, so you'll need to temper your gear and fully masterwork your gear in order to push the highest tier pits and to maximize your survivability. And with this build, I am not using any uber uniques, but this build does require several chaos armors. And just be aware that the chaos armors can be switched around depending on what slot you get the chaos armor. And this is a pit pushing version of the ball lightning build. So if you plan to speed farm, the gear will be different. Now I didn't get the best greater affix stats on some of my gear, and I didn't get the best masterwork on some of the gear I'm currently using, but in the D4 build planner I shared the best greater affix stat and what stat to masterwork for this build, and I'll have this full build layout in the D4 build planner linked in the description below. So starting with the helmet, I'm using the Chaos Helm, the Lacron's Talisman, and the stats it has is all stats, maximum resource, critical strike damage, and resistance to all elements. And you want to masterwork all stats, and a unique aspect states your skills gain 0.48 critical strike chance per point of primary resource you have when cast, up to 48%. Each point of primary resource above 100 grand skill 0.2 critical strike damage instead, up to 500 resource. So this chaos perk will greatly increase your critical strike chance and critical strike damage. Next for the chest piece, I'm using the chaos chest piece, the Godslayer crown, and the stats it has is all stats, maximum life, damage to elites, and cooldown reduction. And you want to masterwork cooldown reduction. And the unique aspect states when you stun, freeze, or immobilize an elite, you pull in all nearby enemies and deal 72% increased damage to them for 3 seconds. This can only occur once every 12 seconds. Against bosses, this effect triggers when dealing damage instead. So this unique aspect will greatly increase your damage to crowd controlled enemies and bosses. And this unique aspect is also good for grouping up enemies. Next for the gloves, I'm using the Chaos Gloves, the Crown Evolution, and the stats it has is maximum life, lucky hit chance, shadow resistance, and cooldown reduction. And you want to masterwork cooldown reduction. And the unique aspect states each time you use a skill with a resource cost, gain gain 18% increased damage, and resource cost is increased by 30% for 4 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So this unique aspect will greatly increase your damage and resource cost of your Ball Lightning skill. And you want to increase the resource cost of Ball Lightning so your Ball Lightning can always overpower when using the Banished Lord's Talisman. Next for the pants, I'm using the Chaos Pants, the Banished Lord's Talisman. And the stats it has is maximum life, attack speed, overpower damage, and plus ranks to core skill. And you want to masterwork plus ranks to core skill. And the unique aspect states, after you spend 275 of your primary resource, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower. Your critical strikes that overpower deal 72% increased damage. And with this build, you can always have your Ball Lightning skill spend over 275 mana. So your Ball Lightning will always overpower, and this unique aspect will greatly increase its damage. Next for the boots, I'm using the Chaos Boots, the Fist of Fate. And the stats it has is attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. And you want to masterwork attack speed. And the unique aspect states, your attacks randomly deal 1% to 360% of their normal damage. So this unique aspect has a chance to deal huge damage. Next for the weapon, I'm using a one-handed weapon, and the stats it has is intelligence, damage, and critical strike damage. And for the tempering stats, I have chance for Ball Lightning projectiles to cast twice, and shock critical strike damage. And you want to masterwork chance for Ball Lightning projectiles to cast twice. And the legendary aspect states, Ice Blade's chance to apply vulnerable is increased by 20%, and the vulnerable duration is increased by 4 seconds. You gain 31% vulnerable damage. Now with this build, we're not using Ice Blades, so you can ignore the first part of this legendary aspect. All we care about is that you gain 31% vulnerable damage, which will greatly increase your damage. Next for the offhand, I'm using the unique focus to Strike of Stormhorn, and for the implicit stat it states, chance for Ball Lightning projectiles to cast twice is converted to a chance to cast a Super Ball Lightning. And for the stats it has critical strike damage, Ball Lightning projectiles, plus ranks to Ball Lightning, and chance for Ball Lightning projectiles to cast twice. And you want to masterwork plus ranks to Ball Lightning. And for the unique aspect it states, Ball Lightning splashes on impact dealing 290% of its total damage instantly. It stuns enemies 1 second if it reaches its maximum range. Super Ball Lightnings are larger, deal 125% increased damage, have higher lucky hit chance, and their stun duration is increased to 3 seconds. So this unique focus will greatly increase your Ball Lightning's damage, and you will have a chance to cast Super Ball Lightnings. But I do want to mention, if you plan to speed farm, you do want to switch this unique offhand with the unique focus, the Kun's Catalyst, which will allow your Ball Lightnings to orbit around you, and you can cast Ball Lightning while moving. So the Kun's Catalyst is a lot better for speed farming, but the Strike of Stormhorn is a lot better for pit pushing. Okay, next for the amulet, the stats I have is percent intelligence, damage, and plus ranks to glass cannon. And for the tempering stats, I have shock critical strike damage and unstable currents cooldown reduction. And you want to masterwork plus ranks to glass cannon. And I do want to mention that you want to replace the stat damage for the stat plus ranks to permafrost. And for the legendary aspect, it states, deal 73.5% increased damage while you have no defensive skill on your action bar. And with this build, we're not using any defensive skill on our action bar, so this legendary aspect will greatly increase your damage. Next for the rings. Now for the first ring, I'm using the unique ring, the Galvanic Azurite, and the stats it has is critical strike chance, lightning damage, cooldown reduction, and plus ranks to convulsions. And you want to masterwork plus ranks to convulsions. And the unique aspect states, lightning damage leave enemies magnetized for 4 seconds, causing them to emit crackling energy, and increase all lightning damage they take from you by 54%. If 2 magnetized enemies hit each other with crackling energy, they pull each other together. So this unique aspect will greatly increase your lightning's damage. Now for the second ring, I'm using the unique ring, the Tarash's ring, and the stats it has is lucky hit chance, non-physical damage, cooldown reduction, and plus ranks to potent warding. And you want to masterwork cooldown reduction. And the unique aspect states, casting a pyromancy, shock, or frost skill increases your damage by 19.5 seconds for 8 seconds, stacking once per element. Casting again refreshes all bonuses if the previous skill was a different element. And with this build, we can easily cast a pyromancy, shock, and frost skill. So this unique aspect will greatly increase your damage. Okay, next really quickly for the runes and gems. So on the helmet, I'm using the Sur rune and Vex rune. And this rune set will gain you +1 to all skills whenever you cast 5 skills. On the chest piece, I'm using the Neo rune and Ohm rune. And this rune set will invoke the Barbarian's Warcry skill, which will increase your damage when you avoid health damage while fighting for 2 seconds. And for the remaining armor pieces, I'm using Topaz gems to increase my intelligence, which will increase our damage. And for the weapon and offhand, I'm using Emerald gems to increase my critical strike damage. And on the jewelry, I'm using Skull gems to increase my armor. Now, as of right now, my armor is at 551, which is below the armor cap of 1000. But when using incense, I'll reach the armor cap. And you always want to use your potions and 3 incense to greatly increase your experience gain to level up faster. So for the potion, I'm using the Elixir Advantage 2, which will increase my attack speed and lucky hit chance. For the incense, I'm using Song of the Mountain to increase my armor, Soothing Spices to increase my maximum resistance and my armor, and lastly Sage's Whispers to increase my intelligence. So now checking out my armor, I'm at 1001 armor, which is right at the armor cap of 1000. And if you check out my elemental resistance, all my resistance is capped out. Okay, so I did showcase a build to easily clear the highest tier pits, and make sure you masterwork your gear as it's crucial for significantly boosting your stats. And this full build layout will be in the D4 build planner linked in the description below. Okay, so next for the Paragon Board. Now this is a fully optimized Paragon Board for this build to push the highest tier pits. And I do want to mention that it is very important to level up your glyphs, as your glyphs will greatly increase your damage. Now the Paragon Board in the D4 build planner will have all the important nodes you want, but I'm not going to use all the Paragon points because everyone has not maxed out their Paragon level. But if you have extra Paragon points, then you just want to add more intelligence or more damage. And I do want to mention that you do want to get some strength nodes on the Paragon Board to be able to cap out your armor. Now I'm just going to quickly go over this Paragon Board, going over the important nodes and glyphs, but I'll have the full Paragon Board layout in the D4 build planner in the description below. So starting with the star board, I'm using the Elementalist glyph, and this glyph will increase the bonuses of all rare nodes within range. And the additional bonus will greatly increase your damage when you deal fire, cold, or lightning damage to an enemy. The next Paragon Board I'm using is Ceaseless Conduit, and the glyph I'm using is Destruction, and this glyph will greatly increase your critical strike damage. I'm also using the legendary node Ceaseless Conduit, and this states while you have crackling energy charges, you deal 10% increased damage. This amount increases by 2% per 20 intelligence you have up to 60%. When you reach full charges, your crackling energy damage is increased by 3 times this amount until you run out of charges. Current bonus 60%. So this legendary node will greatly increase your damage while you have crackling energy. And I did split this Paragon Board into 2 directions. So first heading left this way. The next Paragon Board I took is Enchantment Master, and the glyph I'm using is Charged. And this glyph will greatly increase your damage when you pick up crackling energy. I also took the legendary node Enchantment Master, and this states your enchantments are 30% stronger, and each equipped enchantment grants 40% increased damage with their main element, and 20% increased damage for the second element if it is the same element. And with this build we're using 2 lightning enchantments, so this legendary node will greatly increase our damage. Now heading back to the Ceaseless Conduit Paragon Board and heading right this way. The next Paragon Board I took is Frigid Fate, and the glyph I'm using is Eliminator, and this glyph will increase the bonuses of all normal nodes within range, and the additional bonus will increase your damage to elites. I also took the legendary node Frigid Fate, which states you deal bonus damage to vulnerable enemies equal to 20% of the total amount of bonus damage with cold up to a maximum of 60%. So this legendary node will greatly increase your damage to vulnerable enemies. Then heading down this way. And the last Paragon Board I took is Searing Heat, and the glyph I'm using is Adept, and this glyph will increase your mastery skills damage, and the additional bonus will increase your mastery skills area. So this will affect your Ball Lightning's area effect, which will make your Ball Lightning hit more enemies. I also took the legendary node Searing Heat, which states pyromancy skills have a 15% increased critical strike chance, and all your skills deal increased direct damage equal to 10% of your critical strike damage bonus up to 60%. Current direct damage bonus 60%. Now we can ignore the first part of this legendary node because all we care about is the second part, which states all your skills deal direct damage equal to 10% of your critical strike damage bonus up to 60%. So this legendary node will greatly increase your damage. And I do want to mention that it is very important to level up your glyphs to get the additional bonus and legendary bonus, which will greatly increase your stats. And leveling up your glyphs will increase the radius of your glyphs, so you can take fury nodes to get the additional bonus. And I do want to mention that it is important to take some strength nodes on the Paragon Board because gaining strength will increase your armor, so taking strength nodes will allow you to reach the armor cap of 1000. Okay, so that's a fully optimized Paragon Board for this build for maximizing your damage and survivability. And you want to level up your glyphs to get the additional bonus, and if you have extra Paragon points, then you want to get more intelligence or more damage. And I'll have this full Paragon Board layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. Okay, next I want to go over really quickly how to always overpower with your Ball Lightning skill. So first you'll need to use the Chaos Armor, the Banished Lord's Talisman, which will allow you to overpower when you spend 275 mana. So then you'll need to increase the mana cost of Ball Lightning to 275 or greater. And we can easily increase our resource cost by first using the Chaos Armor Crown Evolution, which will greatly increase the mana cost of Ball Lightning the more times we cast it. And we can also increase the mana cost of Ball Lightning because of the Chaos perk Advanced Techniques. So as you can see, when I keep casting Ball Lightning, the resource cost will go above 275, and this will make Ball Lightning always overpower because of the Chaos Armor Banished Lord's Talisman. Okay, so thanks for checking out one of the best and most powerful Ball Lightning build in Season 10 without using any Uber uniques. With this build, you can easily push the highest tier pits and one-shot any Uber bosses. This build can easily clear tier 100 pits, allowing you to max out your glyph levels. With this build, you should have maximum damage and survivability to clear the hardest content in the game. And I will have this full build layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. And just be aware, this is a pit pushing version of the Ball Lightning build and not the speed farm version. So if you're looking to level or speed farm, then I would recommend checking out my speed Ball Lightning build. Hope this helps, and more Diablo 4 videos to come, so stay tuned. And of course,